A dying farm was hers. A silent cowboy next door changed her fate. The bank letter sat on the kitchen table like a death sentence. Claire Hamilton had 3 weeks to come up with $40,000 or lose everything her father had built. The ranch house creaked in the wind, its bones as tired as hers. She was 28 and felt 60. Outside, the fence posts leaned at desperate angles. Half the cattle had been sold off last month. The water pump coughed and sputtered every morning like it was dying. Her father had been gone 2 years, and she was watching his legacy crumble in her hands. Claire walked to the window and saw him again, the man next door, working his property like clockwork. He never spoke to her, never waved, just worked from dawn until dark, fixing things, mending fences, tending a small herd. His name was Jake Brennan, and in the 6 months since he had bought the abandoned property next to hers, he had not said 10 words to her. She hated how perfect his fences looked, how his barn had fresh paint, how his cattle were fat and healthy. Everything she was failing at he made look easy. The truck engine turned over 3 times before it caught. Claire drove into town with the bank letter folded in her jacket pocket. She needed to sell something, anything. The feed store owner shook his head before she even finished asking. Nobody was buying ranch equipment in a drought. She sat in her truck outside the bank, hands gripping the steering wheel. The loan officer had been clear last time. No extensions, no second chances. Her father had borrowed against the land during the bad years, and now those debts were hers. When she got back to the ranch, the sun was setting orange and angry across the plains. Her headlights caught something strange. The south pasture fence, the one that had been falling apart for months, was fixed. New posts, new wire, tight and straight. Claire got out of the truck slowly. She walked the fence line in the fading light. Someone had spent hours on this. The work was professional, solid. She turned and looked at the property next door. Jake Brennan was walking back toward his barn, tools over his shoulder. He did not look her way. She wanted to call out to him, to ask why, but her throat was tight. Nobody did this kind of work for free. Nobody helped without wanting something in return. Her father had taught her that. Back in the house, she made coffee she did not drink and stared at the bank letter. 3 weeks. $40,000. Impossible. Through the window, she could see a light on in Jake's barn. Even in the dark, the man never stopped, never slowed down. Claire did not trust silent men, did not trust help that came without asking. But as she touched the fence repair estimate she had gotten last month, $1,200 she did not have, she felt something crack inside her chest. Maybe she was too proud. Maybe pride was a luxury she could not afford anymore. Morning came too fast. Claire walked out to check the water tank and found fresh hay bales stacked near the barn. Premium quality, the kind she had not been able to afford in months. Her cattle were already pulling at the strings through the fence rails. Her hands shook as she cut the first bale open. This was not charity. This is something else. She marched across the property line, anger burning hotter than the rising sun. Jake was shoeing a horse in his yard. He looked up as she approached, his face weathered and unreadable under his hat. He was older than her, maybe 35, with the kind of quiet strength that came from years of hard work. Claire stopped 10 feet away. "Why are you doing this?" He set the horse's hoof down gently and straightened. "Doing what?" "The fence?" "The hay. I did not ask for your help." "I know." His voice was rough from disuse, like he was not accustomed to talking much. "So why?" Claire crossed her arms, trying to look stronger than she felt. "What do you want?" Jake picked up a rag and wiped his hands slowly. "Your cattle were getting out through that fence, ending up on my property. Fixed it so they would not. And the hay. Had extra. Nobody has extra hay in a drought." Claire's voice cracked slightly. "What do you really want?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she had not expected. Sadness. Old and deep. "Nothing," he said quietly. "I want nothing from you." He turned back to his horse, and Claire stood there feeling foolish and angry and confused all at once. She walked back to her property, but the conversation sat wrong in her gut. 2 days later, her water pump died completely. The mechanic quoted her $3,000 for a replacement. She sat on the porch steps and put her head in her hands. The cattle needed water. She needed water. Without it, she had maybe a week before everything fell apart even faster. That evening, she heard an engine. Jake's truck pulled up to her barn, and he got out with tools and a pump still in its box. He did not ask permission. Just started working. Claire watched from the porch, torn between gratitude and fury. After an hour, she brought him water. He took it, drank, and handed the glass back without a word. "I cannot pay you," she said. "Did not ask you to. Why are you helping me?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, his hand still on the pump housing. "I had a sister once. Tried to run a ranch on her own after her husband left. Nobody helped her. She lost everything. He looked up at Claire. I was young and stupid and did not know how to help. Watched her fall apart. Claire felt her throat tighten. What happened to her? Sold the land for nothing. Moved to the city. Died 3 years later. Heart attack. She was 32. He went back to work. That is all. She wanted to say something, but the words would not come. Instead, she grabbed a wrench and knelt beside him. Show me how this works. He glanced at her, surprised, then nodded. They worked in silence as the sun set, and for the first time in months, Claire did not feel completely alone. The pump was running by midnight. Claire made coffee, and they sat on her porch steps, exhausted. The night was cool and clear, stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. I have 3 weeks to come up with $40,000, Claire said suddenly. She did not know why she was telling him. The bank is foreclosing. Jake sipped his coffee. That is a lot of money. My father borrowed against the land during the drought 5 years ago. Kept borrowing. I did not know how bad it was until after he died. She stared into her cup. I have been trying to make the payments, but I am barely keeping the lights on. What about selling some land? Tried. Nobody is buying in this market. Not for what I would need. Claire laughed bitterly. I have been looking at every option. There are no good ones left. Jake was quiet for a while. Then he said, there is a rodeo circuit running through the state next month. Big prize purses. Bull riding event has a $20,000 first prize. Claire looked at him. I have not ridden bulls since I was 19, and that was only twice. For fun. You were good at it, though. I saw you ride at the county fair 6 years back. You had talent. She stared at him. You remember that? You rode that bull like you were born on its back. Jake met her eyes. 20,000 would not solve everything, but it would buy you time. Maybe enough to figure something else out. Claire wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Bull riding. He could barely keep her ranch running, and he was suggesting she risk her neck on a 2,000-pound animal. But as she sat there, looking at her dying land, she realized she was already drowning. What was one more desperate gamble? I would need to practice, she said slowly. I would need equipment. A bull to train on. Jake nodded. I know a guy with practice bulls, and I can help you train. Why would you do that? He stood up, setting his empty cup on the railing. Because sometimes people need a chance, and sometimes the only person who can give them that chance is a stranger who understands what it is like to watch someone you care about lose everything. He walked to his truck, and Claire sat alone in the dark, her heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The practice arena was 40 miles north, a dusty complex run by a man named Pete Carson who bred bulls for rodeos. Claire had not been this nervous since her father's funeral. Jake drove them in his truck, silent as always, and she was grateful he did not try to fill the quiet with empty conversation. Pete was 60 and missing 2 fingers on his left hand. Bull riding, he said when Claire asked. He looked her up and down. You are smaller than most riders. That can work for you or against you. Depends on if you are smart or stupid. I am desperate, Claire said. Does that count? Pete laughed, a sound like gravel in a can. Desperate is honest. I can work with that. The first bull was called Smokestack, a 1,500-pound practice animal that Pete swore was gentle. Claire climbed onto the chute rails, her hands already sweating inside her gloves. The bull shifted beneath her, muscle and heat, and barely contained violence. 8 seconds, Jake said from beside the chute. That is all you need. 8 seconds. Claire nodded, positioned her hand in the rope, and gave the signal. The gate swung open. Smokestack came out spinning. Claire felt her body whip to the side, her free arm flailing for balance. 3 seconds. 4. The world was a blur of motion and dust. 5 seconds. Her grip was slipping. 6. The bull kicked hard, and she went flying. She hit the dirt hard enough to see stars. Pete and Jake were there immediately, pulling her up, checking for injuries. Everything hurt, but nothing was broken. Again, Claire said, spitting dust. She rode 6 more times that day. Never made it past 6 seconds. Her body was a constellation of bruises by the time they drove home, and she could barely lift her arms. But she would be back tomorrow. The training became her life. Every morning at 5, Jake would pick her up, and they would drive to Pete's arena. She rode bulls until her hands bled and her legs gave out. Jake watched every ride, never saying much, but always there when she hit the ground. 2 weeks passed. Claire was making it to 7 seconds regularly. The bank letter had 10 days left on it. She tried not to think about the math. Even if she won the 20,000, she would still be 20,000 short. But Jake was right. It would buy her time. On a Thursday morning, she finally made the 8-second buzzer. Smokestack threw her half a second later, but she had done it. Jake was grinning when she stood up, and it was the first time she had seen him smile. It changed his whole face, made him look younger. "You were ready," Pete said. "The rodeo starts in 6 days. You need to register today." Claire felt the reality of it hit her. This was actually happening. She was going to ride a bull in front of thousands of people, risking everything on 8 seconds. That night, she could not sleep. She walked out to the barn at 2 a.m. and found Jake's truck parked near her property line. He was sitting on the tailgate, looking at the stars. "Could not sleep either?" she asked, walking over. He shook his head. "Too much thinking." Claire climbed up beside him. "Want to share?" "Worried about you getting hurt." His voice was quiet. "That prize money will not matter if you are dead. I have to try, Jake. I have no other options." "I know." He turned to look at her. "Just wish there was another way." They sat in silence for a while. Then Claire said, "Tell me about your sister." Her name, Beth. Jake's voice went softer. "She was stubborn as hell. Reminded me of you, actually. Refused to ask for help even when she was drowning in debt. Thought she could handle everything alone." "I am not like that," Claire said, then stopped. "Okay, maybe I am exactly like that." Jake almost smiled. "She would have liked you. Would have told you to stop being stupid and accept help when it is offered." "Is that what you are doing?" "Offering help. I am offering friendship," Jake said, "and maybe a chance to do right by someone when I could not do right by Beth." Claire felt something shift in her chest. "I am glad you moved here, Jake, even if you are too quiet and too helpful, and it drives me crazy sometimes." "I will try to be less helpful," he said, and this time he was definitely smiling. The rodeo registration went through the next morning. Claire Hamilton registered for bull riding. The entry fee took the last of her savings. She had 5 days to prepare, and then everything would come down to 8 seconds on a beast designed to throw her off. Jake increased the training intensity. They went to the arena twice a day now. Claire rode bulls until she dreamed about them at night, her body moving through the motions even in sleep. Pete brought out harder bulls, animals with meaner temperaments, closer to what she would face in competition. She got thrown every time. Hard. Brutal. Punishing. But she kept getting back on. 3 days before the rodeo, Claire made 8 seconds on a bull called Tornado. Then she made it on Hellfire. Then on Razorback. Something had clicked. Her body knew what to do now, moved with the rhythm of the chaos instead of fighting it. "You are a natural," Pete said, genuine respect in his voice. "I have seen professional riders with worse form." But that night, disaster struck. Claire was doing evening chores when the cattle gate broke. She tried to fix it, and the heavy metal post fell, crushing her right hand against the fence rail. The pain was instant and blinding. Jake found her 20 minutes later, cradling her hand, tears streaming down her face. He drove her to the emergency room without a word. The x-rays showed no breaks, but severe bruising and swelling. The doctor wrapped it tight and told her no strenuous activity for 2 weeks. The rodeo was in 2 days. Claire sat in Jake's truck outside the hospital, staring at her bandaged hand. "It is over," she whispered. "I cannot ride like this." Jake started the engine. "We will figure something out." "There is nothing to figure out. I cannot grip the rope. I cannot compete. The bank forecloses in 8 days, and I have no way to stop it." Claire felt the weight of defeat crushing her. I should have known better than to hope. Jake drove in silence, but when they reached her ranch, he did not drop her off. Instead, he kept driving. "Where are we going?" Claire asked. "To see someone who might be able to help." They drove for an hour into the neighboring county. Jake pulled up to a small house with a neatly kept yard. An old woman answered the door, her face lighting up when she saw Jake. "Jacob Brennan, it has been too long." She hugged him, then looked at Claire with sharp, knowing eyes. "And who is this?" "This is Claire Hamilton. She needs your help, Margaret." Jake gestured to Claire's hand. "She has to ride in 2 days, and her hand is damaged." Margaret was a retired physical therapist who had worked with rodeo riders for 30 years. She took Claire's hand gently, unwrapped it, and studied the swelling with experienced eyes. "The doctor said 2 weeks, Claire said. "But I do not have 2 weeks. Doctors are cautious. That is their job." Margaret went to her cabinet and pulled out supplies. "My job is getting stubborn people back in action when they should not be. Let me work." For the next 3 hours, Margaret used techniques Claire had never seen. Ice therapy, compression, careful massage. something she called contrast bathing. The pain lessened. The swelling reduced. It was not perfect, but it was better. "You will need to tape it heavily," Margaret said, "and the pain will be considerable. But if you are determined to be foolish, at least be foolish with proper support." She showed Claire how to tape her hand and gave her a supply of materials. "Come back tomorrow morning. We will do this again. 2 treatments might get you functional enough to grip a rope. Might." Jake tried to pay her, but Margaret waved him off. "You helped my son when his ranch was failing. I do not forget debts." On the drive home, Claire looked at Jake differently. "How many people have you helped?" "A few." "Why did you really move here, Jake?" "To this specific place?" He was quiet for a long time. "After Beth died, I could not stay where I was. Too many memories. I sold my ranch and started over, picked a place that needed someone who knew how to fix things, and..." He glanced at her. "Did not expect to find someone as stubborn as my sister living next door." "Lucky you," Claire said, but she was smiling. They went back to Margaret the next morning. The treatment helped. Claire's hand was not healed, but she could grip, barely. It would have to be enough. The day of the rodeo arrived. Claire stood in the parking lot of the arena, surrounded by trucks and trailers, listening to the roar of the crowd inside. Her hand throbbed despite the medication. Her entire body was tight with fear. Jake stood beside her, quiet as always. Finally, he said, "You do not have to do this." "Yes, I do. Beth would not want you to risk your life for a ranch." Claire turned to him. "Your sister lost her ranch because nobody helped her. I am losing mine even with help. At least I am going down fighting." She touched his arm. "Thank you for everything, Jake. For being the neighbor she needed. The neighbor I needed. If you die on that bull, I am going to be very angry with you," he said, but his voice was rough with emotion. "Then I better not die." The arena was massive, packed with thousands of screaming fans. Claire registered and drew her bull. Number 47. The name made her blood run cold. Widowmaker. A legendary bull with a reputation for destroying riders. In 30 rides, only 2 people had made the 8-second buzzer on him. Pete found her in the back. "You drew Widowmaker. You can withdraw. Nobody would blame you. I need that prize money. You need to be alive more." Pete's face was serious. "That bull has put 6 riders in the hospital this year. One of them still cannot walk right." Claire looked at the board. First place was 20,000. Second was 10. Third was 5. If she withdrew, she got nothing. If she rode and failed, she got nothing. If she rode and succeeded, she got a chance. I am riding. The other events went by in a blur. Barrel racing, bronc riding. Finally, the bull riding began. Claire watched rider after rider get thrown, some in seconds, a few making the full 8. The crowd was wild, hungry for violence and spectacle. Then they called her name. Claire Hamilton on Widowmaker. The crowd's roar changed pitch. They knew this bull, knew what it meant. Jake was in the stands somewhere watching. She could feel his presence like a steadying hand. Claire climbed the chute rails. Widowmaker was enormous, 2,000 pounds of muscle and rage. His eyes rolled as she lowered herself onto his back. Her injured hand screamed as she worked it into the rope. The tape held, barely. 8 seconds, she whispered to herself. Just 8 seconds. She nodded to the gate operator. The world held its breath. The gate opened. Widowmaker exploded out of the chute like a bomb. He spun left, kicked high, twisted in midair. Claire felt her body whip like a flag in a hurricane. 2 seconds. Her injured hand was slipping. 3 seconds. She clamped down harder, ignoring the agony. 4 seconds. The bull switched directions. Claire's free arm flailed. 5 seconds. She was losing her seat. 6 seconds. Widowmaker kicked with both back legs, and she felt herself coming loose. 7 seconds. The world slowed down. She could see every detail. The dust particles in the air, the grain of the rope under her palm, the massive muscle of the bull beneath her. Her father's face telling her she could do anything if she refused to quit. 8 seconds. Claire let go, and Widowmaker threw her 15 feet. She hit the dirt and rolled, the bullfighters immediately between her and the animal. The crowd was screaming, a sound like the ocean in a storm. She had done it. She had actually done it. But as she stood up, dizzy and disoriented, she saw the scoreboard. The numbers were high. Very high. But 2 riders were still left to go, and both were professionals with perfect records this season. Claire walked to the medical tent where they checked her over. Bruised ribs. Possible concussion. Her hand was swelling again, blood seeping through the tape, but she was alive. Jake found her there. That was the craziest thing I have ever seen. Did I win? 2 more riders left. We will know in 10 minutes. They sat together, waiting. The crowd roared twice more. Then silence. Then the announcer's voice crackling over the speakers. 3rd place, 78 points, went to a rider from Texas. 2nd place, 81 points, went to a veteran from Oklahoma. Claire held her breath. And in 1st place with an incredible 84-point ride on the legendary Widowmaker, Claire Hamilton. The words did not feel real. Jake was pulling her to her feet, careful of her injuries. $20,000. She had actually done it. The prize money would not save her ranch alone, but it was half of what she needed. Half of impossible. The award ceremony was a blur. Pictures, handshakes, a massive check she could barely hold with her damaged hand. Other riders congratulated her, genuine respect in their eyes. She had ridden Widowmaker and won. That meant something in their world. Back at the truck, Claire counted the money 3 times. $20,000 in prize money minus taxes and fees left her with about $15,000. Still $5,000 short of half what she needed. Still $25,000 short of saving the ranch. It is not enough, she said quietly. Jake started the engine. No, but it is something. They drove home in darkness. Claire's body was shutting down, adrenaline wearing off, leaving only pain and exhaustion. When they reached her ranch, she saw lights on in her house. Strange, since she had left everything off. Jake tensed beside her. Stay here. But Claire was already getting out of the truck. They approached the house together, and through the window she saw people inside. Her heart hammered. Had someone broken in? She pushed open the door and stopped. Her kitchen was full of neighbors. Pete Carson was there, Margaret, the physical therapist, the feed store owner, the man who ran the local diner, the least 15 people all standing around her kitchen table. What is going on? Claire asked. Pete stepped forward. We heard about your bank situation, about the foreclosure. Jake might have mentioned it to a few people. Claire looked at Jake, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. We took up a collection, the feed store owner said. He handed her an envelope. It is not much, but everyone gave what they could. Claire opened the envelope with shaking hands. Checks and cash. She counted quickly. $7,000. I do not understand, she whispered. Margaret smiled. Your father helped half the people in this room at one time or another. When the drought hit 10 years ago, he gave away cattle to families who were starving. When the Hendersons lost their barn in a fire, he organized the whole county to rebuild it. He never asked for anything back. We should have helped you sooner, the diner owner said, shame in his voice. We thought you were managing. Thought you would ask if you needed something. But Jake made us realize we were letting you drown out of pride, out of assumption. Claire felt tears streaming down her face. This is too much. I cannot accept this. You do not have a choice, Pete said gruffly. It is done. The money is yours. $7,000 plus $15,000 from the rodeo. $22,000. Still $18,000 short. Jake cleared his throat. There is one more thing. He pulled out a folded document from his jacket. I talked to my bank. I am putting up my property as collateral for a loan. $18,000. It will cover the rest of what you need. Claire stared at him. Jake, no. I cannot let you risk your land for me. It is not a gift. It is a loan. You will pay me back when you can. His eyes were steady on hers. Your father left you this ranch because he believed you could run it. I believe that too. But you cannot do it alone. Nobody can. What if I fail? What if I lose everything anyway and take your property with it? Then we both start over. Jake smiled slightly. But I do not think you will fail. You just rode Widowmaker. Running a ranch should be easy after that. The room laughed, and Claire felt something break open in her chest. All this time she had been trying to do everything alone, thinking that asking for help was weakness. But standing here, surrounded by people who cared, she understood what her father had known. Strength was not about standing alone. It was about building something together. Okay, she whispered. Okay, thank you. The neighbors left one by one, hugs and promises to help with repairs, offers of equipment loans and labor. When the house was finally empty, only Jake remained. I do not know how to repay this, Claire said. Start by accepting it. Jake moved toward the door, then paused. And maybe stop trying to do everything yourself. You have people who want to help. Let them. Jake, wait. Claire caught his arm. Why did you really do all this? The fence, the hay, the training, the loan, all of it. He turned to face her, and in the dim light of her kitchen, she saw something in his expression she had not allowed herself to see before. Something tender and careful and real, because when I moved here and saw you struggling, saw you trying so hard to save something you loved, I recognized it, the determination, the stubbornness, the refusal to quit even when quitting would have been easier. He paused. I could not save Beth, but maybe I could help save you. And somewhere along the way, helping you became less about her and more about you. Claire stepped closer. What are you saying? I am saying that I moved here looking for a place to hide from my past. Instead, I found a reason to build a future. His hand came up gentle against her cheek. If you want that too. She did not answer with words. Instead, she closed the distance between them, and when their lips met, it felt like coming home. Outside, the ranch stretched into darkness, broken fences and tired buildings and challenges that would take years to fix. But inside, Claire Hamilton stood in her father's kitchen, held by a silent cowboy who had changed her fate, and for the first time since losing her father, she believed that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The bank would get their money, the ranch would survive, and she would not face any of it alone. Not anymore.